All right, let's talk about a major global shift. While most countries are busy tightening their borders, putting up walls, there's one tiny nation that's doing the complete opposite. It's rolling out the red carpet. But here's the catch, it's only for a very specific kind of person, the ultra-rich. So how in the world did Singapore become the new global safe deposit box for billionaire fortunes? Let's break it down.
So here's how we're going to unpack this. We'll start with the sheer scale of this wealth migration, the billionaire wave. Then we'll look at the exclusive golden visas that gets them in the door. We'll cover the Singapore advantage, what makes it so attractive, and then the real story, the escape from uncertainty. Of course, there's a price of success for the locals, and finally, we'll ask if this fortress is truly unbreakable.
Okay, first things first, we need to get our heads around the incredible scale of what's happening. We're not talking about a small trend here. This is a full-blown tidal wave of capital that is fundamentally reshaping this entire city-state. Just look at this number. In 2024 alone, about 3,400 new millionaires packed their bags and moved to Singapore. Now, for a country of less than 6 million people, that is a staggering figure. And you have to understand, this is not happening by accident. This is a very deliberate, very targeted influx of wealth. And of course, those people didn't come empty-handed. They brought their money with them. We're talking an estimated $150 billion in a single year. To put that into perspective, that's almost a third of Singapore's entire annual GDP. That isn't a trickle, my friends. That's a flood. Now, this isn't an entirely new phenomenon. High-profile billionaires have been setting up shop here for years. You've got guys like Eduardo Saverin from Facebook, James Dyson of vacuum fame. They were the early signals, basically telling the rest of the world's elite, hey, this is the place to be. And that trend is now accelerating like crazy. So you're probably wondering, how does this actually work? Well, it's not like you just fill out a standard immigration form. Oh no, Singapore has engineered a system that's incredibly exclusive, designed specifically to filter for and attract the planet's wealthiest individuals. Let's look at the mechanics. It's called the Global Investor Program, and really, you should think of it less like a visa and more like a membership to a very exclusive club with a very high barrier to entry. You've got three options. 1. Invest about $7.5 million into a business and create jobs. 2. Park about $18 million into a local fund. Or 3. The most popular route by far. You set up what's known as a family office. So what exactly is a family office? Well, imagine a private personal headquarters for just one incredibly wealthy family. It's a company whose only job is to manage that family's assets, their investments, their legal stuff, their philanthropy, and, of course, how they pass their wealth down to the next generation. They are intensely private, designed for maximum discretion, which makes them the perfect vehicle for billionaires who want to stay off the radar. Okay, so the family office explains the how, but it doesn't quite get to the why. I mean, why Singapore? Why not Dubai, or Switzerland, or some other financial hub? The answer, as you'll see, is a very carefully constructed mix of rock-solid stability and some incredibly powerful financial perks. I mean, just look at this list. This is the foundation of Singapore's entire appeal. If you're ultra-rich, what you crave more than anything is predictability. And Singapore delivers. You've got insane political stability. The same party has been in charge since 1965. A legal system based on English common law. It's one of the safest and least corrupt countries on Earth. For the global elite, this is the perfect blueprint for a place to park not just your money, but your family too. And right here, this is the financial masterstroke. Look at this comparison. Capital gains tax? Nope. Inheritance tax? Not a chance. This means a billionaire can build a company, sell it for billions of dollars, and keep every single cent. It means family dynasties can be passed down generation after generation without the government taking a massive 40% cut like they would in the US. So the key takeaway is this. Singapore isn't just a safe vault. It's the most tax-efficient, profitable vault in the entire world. But you know, stability and low taxes have been Singapore's game for a while. That doesn't explain this recent dramatic surge. To really understand why the floodgates opened, we have to look at the geopolitical chessboard, and specifically at the collapse of Asia's former financial capital. For decades, Hong Kong was the place. It was the ultimate safe haven for Asian wealth. But this timeline shows you how quickly that all fell apart.
The massive protests in 2019, followed by Beijing's sweeping national security law in 2020, completely shattered the city's reputation for autonomy and the rule of law. For wealthy families, the entire calculation changed, practically overnight.
And this wasn't just some abstract political risk. It became very, very real. Back in 2017, a billionaire named Zhao Jianhua was literally abducted from his luxury hotel room in Hong Kong and whisked away to mainland China. His disappearance sent an ice-cold message through the entire elite community. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter who you are not safe anymore.
And then came the Jack Ma situation, the founder of Alibaba. He was on the verge of the biggest IPO in world history. But then he gives one speech critical of Chinese regulators and boom, Beijing shuts the whole thing down. That sent another clear signal. Being too successful, too outspoken, or too independent in China was now a massive liability. The safe haven was gone. These billionaires needed a new one, and Singapore was right there waiting with open arms.
Now, all of this might sound like a dream scenario for Singapore's economy, right? But what actually happens when this tsunami of foreign cash slams into a tiny, dense island nation? Well, for the average Singaporean citizen, the story starts to look a whole lot different.
Take housing, for example. In Singapore, more than 80% of the population lives in public housing built by the government. These are called HDB flats, and they are the bedrock of their society. But look at this. We're now seeing hundreds of these public apartments selling for over $1 million. The crucial point here is that when the very top of the real estate market gets pushed into the stratosphere, everyone below feels the squeeze.
And this chart really tells the story. Singapore now has the worst wealth inequality in the entire Asia-Pacific region. The top 10% of households now control 2/3 of the country's wealth, leaving the other third for the remaining 90% of the population. This massive gap is creating some serious social tension and raises some tough questions about the country's long-term future. All of this brings us to a fundamental question. Is this model actually sustainable? History is littered with financial safe havens that seemed invincible, right? Until they weren't. For 100 years, Switzerland was the king of banking secrecy, until the US brought them to their knees. Could Singapore be next? So that's the central question, isn't it? Can Singapore really withstand the kind of overwhelming international pressure that completely dismantled Switzerland's legendary financial fortress? Let's just quickly recap what happened there. After the 2008 financial crisis, the US government declared all-out war on offshore tax evasion. They went after Switzerland's biggest banks, like UBS, and threatened them with financial extinction, basically getting cut off from the entire US dollar system. Faced with that, the Swiss had no choice. They caved. They handed over client names, and their century-old tradition of banking secrecy died. But here's why Singapore is playing a completely different game. First, its model isn't built on secrecy. It already shares tax info with both the US and China. But the real trump card is this. Singapore is strategically indispensable to both of the world's superpowers. It hosts critical US military assets while also being one of China's most important economic partners. Neither Washington nor Beijing can afford to destabilize Singapore without seriously hurting their own interests. This geopolitical tightrope walk, that's its ultimate shield. And that leaves us with this final, profound question. Singapore has absolutely cracked the code on how to attract global capital. But in doing so, it has created a dilemma. How do you welcome the immense benefits that come with the ultra-rich without completely pricing out your own citizens and eroding the very soul of your country? That is the billion-dollar question. If you've made it this far, you're not just curious, you're serious. And that's exactly who STOA was built for. Here's the deal. We don't accept everyone. We run on an application-only system because we only work with people who are ready to operate at the next level. So if you want to stop wasting hours chasing noise and instead run a proven, documented process that gets results in less than 90 minutes a day, apply now. There are limited seats, and once they're filled, they're gone for the quarter. Click the link in the description, fill out the short application, and let's see if you're a fit. If you're watching this, my guess is you already know you should.